it is birthday week around here. My puppy turned 3, and then the next day my daughter turns 18. So today we're gonna make a birthday cake. Nothing could be more fun than that, right? So let's get ready to get into this. Now the plan that I have for this is that it's gonna be an orange cake. It's not orange, it's just orange colored, but it's gonna be a vanilla cake, and I was told it must be American buttercream. Okay, so we're gonna do American buttercream today. If you must know, that's not my favorite, although you can find the recipe for American buttercream on CoachChefKim.com. There's also like a full list of different type of frostings that you could use for your cakes. My personal preference is an American meringue buttercream, which is like half American buttercream, half Swiss meringue. They came together and had a baby. Super delicious. That one is my favorite. Unfortunately, it's not my daughter's favorite. So we're going to do a regular American buttercream, but I'm gonna see how dark I can get it without having to put any cocoa powder in it. So typically, if you're going to do frosting and you want it to be black, if you make it chocolate, then you can make it black. We're gonna try a couple of things and see if we can turn this frosting black, because it will be perfect for her. So let's get started. Okay, so today we are using my Bosch mixer, and I am so excited to use it. I have been using other people for a couple of years, but when I tell you, once I got this Bosch earlier this year, completely changed the game for me. Like completely changed everything for me. So today we're going to get into this. There'll be some information up on the blog about the Bosch if you want to know more about that. I did do a comparison contrast against the other mixer that I have and this one, and there's just a couple of things that makes them a little different, but for today we're going to use my Bosch. So let's get into it. All right, so first up, I'm actually going to start with my wet ingredients instead of starting with the dry. And the reason that I do this is because I am one of those people that absolutely hates when you put the cake mix or like your brownie mix or something like that into the thing and then it sticks. I can't stand it. So I put my dry on top. That's literally the only reason. I don't know if scientifically it changes it or not, but this is who I am. So we're gonna get these eggs cracked in here. Yes, I am using cake mix because that is what was requested. I promise you we will do some from scratch baking, but this video today is really going to be more about the process of what we're doing. Always give it an extra little doop of some vanilla. You can use any flavor you like. Actually, I've done birthday cake flavoring in it, and yes, it makes it taste even more like birthday cake. So once everything's in, I'm gonna take my attachment, position her on top, and then we're gonna set this on the mixer. So I just want to make sure there is no additional cake mix on the bottom. So I'm literally pushing it upwards, and there is none, which is great. This also gets the job done so much faster. So this is Electric Orange by Americolor.
So I was out of baking spray, so we're just gonna do this the old school way. So I put a little bit of Crisco on a paper towel, and now I am spreading it all over the inside of my pans. And then we will do flour on the inside of this. You could also use butter if you wanted to, or you could even use the butter wrapper, like if you're making your cake from scratch. Instead of throwing the butter wrapper straight into the trash can, just like use it to put on your cake pan. So then that way you're not wasting anything. So this is how my mother would do her cake pans. And so listen, we had to go old school. It's all good, and my cake does come right out. So when I first started, I used to weigh all of my batter to make sure that my layers would come out evenly. That is something that I still suggest that new people do before you learn how to eyeball just how much batter you need in each pan. But even though I know how to do that, the reason I'm doing it now is because I don't have the strength to actually hold the bowl and pour it over into there. So if you are someone like me who struggles with degenerative disc in your neck and that is affecting the strength in your hands, this is another way that you can add batter to your pans without putting yourself in harm's way. So we're just going to do this. Really only go about 3/4 of the way up. That way you can make sure that your cake pans are not going to overflow while you're baking them in the oven. My oven is preheated to 350. I will put these in, and they are going to bake for about 45 minutes.
So while our cake is baking, I want to take a second and let's have a conversation about doing the thing. So one of the things that I, at this point, am known for is execution, right? And I can't say that I've always been this way, but at this season of my life, this is definitely an execution season for me. So what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of times, a lot of my clients, and we're having conversation when they're talking to me, and they're like, I just can't seem to do the thing. And for me, it takes more energy to not do the thing than it takes to do it, right? So for a lot of people, we have like analysis paralysis. I need to analyze every single thing I need to do in order to get the thing done. And I'm a person who writes things down, right? So a part of our book club last month, we read the book, Write It Down, Make It Happen. And I wanted to introduce that book to my community simply because it is difficult for some people to write it down and then make it happen. Like you can write down whatever you want to. It's the execution piece that gets people. So that was our book of the month last month. And because my birthday was last month, what I wrote down in order to make happen was a list of 43 things. So I wrote these things down, and I have been, the list is on the wall. I have been looking at this list every single day. Like, what can I do today that's going to push the needle on one of these things? And so last week was the week I was like, we're going to finish this book. I have had a book sitting in Google Drive for months. Months. This book was probably written maybe back in March. Months, right? And I was like, no, we're going to finish it. So I pulled it up, put it into Canva, and started doing the things. Now, let me tell you about my situation when it comes to becoming an author. So this is the third book that I have published. And the first book was a doozy, took forever. The second book also took forever. This one, based on historically how things have gone, I was like, prepare yourself for this to take you 2 to 3 weeks, right? This is what I said last week. This is what I said last Wednesday. I was 8 days ago. I was like, prepare yourself for this to take you 2 to 3 weeks to get it formatted the way you wanted to, get it up on Amazon, and have it ready for sale. So I set the date for release for October 15th. That was 8 days ago. 8. The proof is already here. The proof is already here. So let me tell you why this is important. So number one, this book is called The Ultimate Guide to Culinary Instruction. When I wrote the first book, when I wrote Teach Me How to Bake, this one was written for like homeschoolers, right? Like I wrote it for people like me who homeschool their kids and want to teach them about baking. So that was this one. And I was like, let me pull the proof back out so I can compare the two and see if there's a difference in the way things are printed, if I like it or not, right? And so I pulled this proof back out the other night and I was like, wow. And I'm looking at this one and then I look at this one. This is a continuation. So some of the feedback that I got back from Teach Me How to Bake is that it is a fantastic book, but people who wanted to use it for curriculum were like, we need more. And so what was going to be a class turned into a book, right? Now, this book is not available until October 15th. This isn't really a pitch for it, maybe next week. But the reason I'm showing you this is because I set a plan in place 8 days ago. And now I'm already holding the proof in my hands and you'll be able to purchase it October 15th, right? So if I had really sat with myself and sat in my feelings and was overthinking things and I don't know what to do, I do know what to do. I've published before, right? So one of the things I tell people all the time is if you're like, I'm stuck, I can't do this, I don't know what to do, please go find evidence of where you've done it before. Because if you speak the words, I can't do this, your brain will begin to find evidence that you can't. So when you're like, I'm a failure, I'm stupid, I can't, your brain will go, let me go find evidence of that. So because we know this is how our brain works, I'm always going the other way. I can do this. There's a sign on the wall in my room that says I can do hard things because I can. And the reason that I say that out loud instead of saying I can't do this, I say I can do hard things is so that my brain now will go pull up memories of me doing hard things. So when I was doing this book and I couldn't get it formatted correctly, I was like, I can do hard things. I can do hard things. That number one acknowledges in the space into the universe that this is difficult for me. That's number one. I am acknowledging the problem. But then number two, I'm also affirming myself. I can do this and I will. So instead of just saying, I think I can, or I know I can do this, I can do hard things. How do I know? Because I've done it before. So my brain went and pulled evidence of where we've done this before. Right? Chef Kimberly Houston is a published author and has been for several years. And so I was like, I'm not going to stress out if this doesn't work or if it's not working the way I want it to. And literally in a fraction of the time, we now have a new book that's coming out this month, right? And like the joy that you feel once you realize you do the thing is incredible. But that's an aha moment for me. So prior to last year, I did not sit in the enjoyment of my accomplishment. Let me explain what I mean by that. I am a high achieving Virgo. If you got a Virgo in your life, you know what that means. I'm a high achieving Virgo, right? Which means I have a lot of degrees. I went to culinary school. I have an event planning degree. I have an undergraduate degree in organizational development. I have a master's in education. I'm currently working on a PhD in mind-body medicine. I am a high achieving Virgo entrepreneur. Okay? So what that looks like for me is I'm always going. What's next? Right? So once you do the thing, then you're like, okay, we're moving on. Everybody else is still like, oh my God, I can't believe you did the thing. And now I've moved on to the next. And I'm like, I don't understand what y'all so excited about. We've moved on to bigger and better things, right? And last year I learned to sit in the joy of the step-by-step process. One of the things that happened for my family last year was my daughter had back surgery and we were in the hospital for 18 days, totally unplanned. The surgery was planned, but the 18 days was not. And every little moment, every step, because she had to learn how to walk again, right? So every step that was taken, we celebrated it. Every time my daughter could turn their body themselves, we celebrated. Every time my daughter could sit up by themselves, we celebrated. Every time we were in the wheelchair and asked, "Are you ready to stand?" and my daughter could say, "Let me try it on my own," we celebrated, right? And so this went on. The recovery process was from like October to January. And so for months, we were celebrating every little step of the way. And it was in that moment that I realized how I had been living my life not celebrating my accomplishments, and not celebrating my accomplishments because then that gave other people who were in my life who would not celebrate my accomplishments, it gave them an out. It helped me not break my own heart, because I know what it felt like to accomplish something and then the people around you not be supportive of it, right? And so as we're in the hospital and we're going through all the things, we're celebrating every moment, every teeny tiny minuscule thing. We are celebrating it like it is the greatest thing ever to happen. And so now I apply that to my life. Did I stop and have a moment when this book arrived? I did. I cried. I allowed myself to feel the joy. I allowed myself to feel the feelings, because it's not just that I wrote another book. It's that I created the answer to a problem in an industry that hasn't been addressing. People need to know how to teach. Your skill set isn't enough. You need more than that. And so for me, it was a moment of joy for me in this moment, but also a moment of joy and anticipation for the people who will encounter the work, right? And so if I can leave you with nothing else, because this will be a super fun episode, I promise. We're gonna take the cake out of the oven in a little bit, and we're gonna do black frosting, and we're gonna make it fun. But I want you to know and understand that me making this birthday cake right now for my child is a moment in time for me. My baby's turning 18. There are no more. The baby of the group is turning 18. And because of this baby of the group, the baby of my two, I've learned so much about myself in the last year that doing this cake, it's a moment of joy for me. And I'm super excited that I get to share that with you. So let's check on our cake and see how we're doing.
All right, so to do this buttercream, I put my softened butter on one side and the powdered sugar on the other side. The way this Bosch is going to pull this together literally blows my mind. So I'm going to start adding in a little bit of heavy cream. You could also do milk, water, or my favorite, which is coffee creamer. So my favorite way to flavor any type of buttercream, honestly, is to use coffee creamer instead of using heavy cream or milk, because then it's already gonna go ahead and flavor it. But this is just heavy cream. I will add some vanilla towards the end, but like, watch how fluffy this frosting is about to get. All right, so remember earlier when we were talking, I was like, I need to make black frosting, and I typically make it chocolate. Well, Cherry didn't want chocolate frosting, so I dyed the frosting brown first. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to start adding black to it in order for it to turn black. Now, the thing that I have to account for is the fact that it's going to look a little gray in the beginning. But the other piece of this is I need it to be black, but because I'm going to whip it for so long, it's going to lighten up in color. So I will have to come back and add a little bit more black to this because it's going to lighten up the more I whip it. But I need it really, really whipped in order for me to be able to handle it. Okay, so now that we have our cake completely cooled, and my frosting, as you can see, is super, super silky, we are going to fill and then stack our cake. Now, what I did realize was that I forgot to put a little bit of frosting down on the board so the cake won't move. That's just a little trick that cake decorators do so that the cake does not move around the board as you are moving frosting. So smooth it out. And yes, this is American buttercream smoothing like this, literally simply because I whipped it for a really long time. The more air you incorporate into it, the better it's going to be. So for this part of the cake, one of the things, and I left this in real time, so this is really, really slow for me compared to what I used to be able to do. And I left it on real time for a reason. So number one, remember how I said I was like really, really whipping my frosting so that I would be able to maneuver with it better. If the frosting isn't really soft for me, I don't have the strength to move it around the cake. So one of the things that I taught everyone whenever I was teaching cake decorating is that you only ice the cake once, and then from that point you ice the frosting. So you're going to see that I put frosting on top of frosting, and then I move the frosting around the cake. That way I don't have a whole lot of cake crumbs. I actually don't have any cake crumbs moving around my cake. If you're doing something that's like chocolate or red velvet, my suggestion is that your cake layers are frozen when you do them, or at least really chilled, so that you don't have a need for a crumb coat. I never did crumb coat and chill. Like, just freeze your cakes and then ice them. So this cake I didn't. I just let it cool at room temperature because I did all this in one night, and we're having like no issues getting it done. So even though this is like probably still fast for a lot of people, after 10 years of being a pastry chef, this is really, really slow compared to what I used to do. So I'm going to let you keep watching me do this. And then I'm going to ice the top of the cake. I'm going to smooth it out, and then we're going to put a real cool design on it. The other piece of this, because I know you guys are going to ask, is why is there so much frosting on this cake? There's a whole lot of frosting on it because of the way I'm going to come back and decorate it, where I will remove the excess frosting. So for the finishing touches for this cake, we decided to just go with a really simple reverse shell border along the top as well as along the bottom. This one is tried and true classic. Learned it during my years of working at grocery stores while I was in culinary school. It's quick, it's easy, it's simple, it looks elegant. My kid is not really into a whole lot of stuff, so this was perfect, and they are standing next to me while we are doing this, having this conversation.
Cherry's birthday cake is all done. I want to cut it, but I'll wait until tomorrow. So until next time, stay sweet, friends.